This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Hello, my name is Harriton Watko. Welcome to our program. Well, once a month, I planned that we would have the CNG. That would stand for the Citizens National Guard. Now, what that means exactly, I have explained many times before. Now, what exactly do the citizens do for the country? Well, basically to support the president. After all, he is the majority. After all, he is the democratically elected president. And once more, after all, he's possibly the only president that has been doing right. Now, let's look at what it takes to be a president, especially like President Duterte. Well, everybody has vulnerabilities, most especially a president. With what's going on all around the world and locally, the president always is pressured whether he makes a decision either yes, no, no, yes. These have very big consequences and repercussions. For example, we have President Trump in America who's making America first, and he's correct. So he's doing all these sanctions and embargoes. For example, what you've been reading, the steel and aluminum. This has been affecting America, Europe, China, and everybody else around the world. Don't forget, when America hiccups, the rest of the world gets a flu. Here in the Philippines, we can't say necessarily, walang laban sa amin yan, walang pakialam sa atin. Not necessarily. One way or the other, it's called the economics of the world. Every movement, every energy, everything still moves about. Ladies and gentlemen, with us, we have Butch Valdez. You've seen him here. He's my monthly guest, and he enlightens us on all the issues coming around the president as well as around the world. Butch, thanks, you're here again. And thanks for covering for me when that 1 or 2 weeks I wasn't here.
Yes.
Butch,
Yes.
vulnerability ng presidente, parang, is it just the yellow tards? Not necessarily. Is it the critics on Facebook? Hindi naman masyado, and the trolls, no? Pero saan siya vulnerable? Ngayon, tinutulak niya BBL. Now, yan, I'm not sure I know where I stand on BBL. In fact, I have a problem because the Muslims, okay, there's 4%. We are 96% being the Christians. Now, how does that come to an equation when you have the BBL, when to me, in any which way I look at it, it seems like secession. Parang ganun eh, because different religion, different, miskin natural resource. Sa kanila, there's some independence. And what, now they're going to do a territorial a perimeter fence, so to speak? Are we going to have our own Gaza here eventually? Parang ganun eh. Your thoughts?
Well,
Let's start with BBL.
well, as far as the BBL is concerned, I think the president realized that because the previous administration had came up with their version of a BBL, the president had to come up with a BBL, but of different.
Something that's constitutionally palatable.
Yes. Okay. And because the previous administration practically was selling out a territory of the country which was unconstitutional, basically.
Well, what's the difference with this one? How can you have a BBL if you're really not going to put demarcation lines? which
That's
is
right.
di
No,
ba, never
I
mind.
suppose the demarcation lines are quite more manifest in this new BBL than the previous one. And the other thing that this BBL has, it's more inclusive as differentiated from the other BBL, which seemed to push away the Tausugs. Uh,
So
and
more inclusive to of all the
which means
different.
it includes the Tausugs, very important um,
Wala nga noon, ano?
group of
Yeah.
the Muslims, right? And it's what they call the warrior group, right? And at that time, when the previous Noynoy's administration was pushing theirs, I said, this is not a formula for peace, it's a formula for war.
Yes, I remember that.
Because that would create a conflict between the two.
Another
wars.
fight na naman.
Yes, and you're going to have something like that in the middle, and it will precisely open up the opportunity of foreign agencies to come in, and kunwari, they will be the referee. No?
Or helpful.
Yes,
Kukunin lang natural resource.
this is standard operating procedure for the superpowers, right? Buti na lang hindi natuloy. Now, papasok na yun. But the mindset of the Muslims was still BBL. And in this particular case, I am not too familiar with the exact details, but I know that it would include the Tausugs in the governance of
But
this
isn't
area.
there a lack of transparency in the new BBL, supposedly? All we do is, all I read about it, it's in the newspapers, in the major newspapers, it doesn't say much. It doesn't say, it's never published or broadcast exactly what the constitution is of the BBL, the new one anyway.
No,
So
yeah.
I'm still in the dark. But basically, when you put them all together, can the Tausugs, the Maranaos, and the different groups and tribes, whatever you may call them, can they actually live together under one rule? Hindi kaya sila, parang sa Iraq, di ba?
Yeah, yeah.
The issue, the Shiites, the Sunnis.
I think this would be a little different here in the Philippines, because they have actually lived together. There are Tausugs even in places where there's so many Maranaos, no? And Maranaos where there are Tausugs, and they have somehow over the years assimilated, but they are still Tausugs.
But they're also in scrimmages here and there. They erupt
Well,
ever so often.
Yeah, but the scrimmages have been more involving the government and the
The Muslim
Abu
in general.
Sayyaf and so on and so
Well,
forth. No?
isn't the Abu Sayyaf born out of the very same groups? I guess that's what I'm trying to lead to.
Yeah, they were, but I think the fundamental issue of Abu Sayyaf is not really secession. Fundamental issue is economics. No? Because if they were
If they were doing well.
having a good quality of life, no, there wouldn't be any need or want for secession. Well, secession started to come in when they were claiming that
To be poor.
They were poor and there was no government support. No? So they wanted to move on.
But
and
when you
do-
talk of economics, isn't everything about economics? The poor in Manila, those that are living in the cities, those who are relatively poor in the rural areas. Because there's a big difference. Yung poor sa city, to me, is dirt poor. The poor in the provinces, miski papano, there's food. Okay, now, isn't economics the game? You were saying earlier, we were talking about before the show, the real vulnerability, one of the biggest vulnerabilities the president is economics. Now, isn't economics, for example, in the Muslim areas, the BBL, I mean, it's not like they never got their IRAs, their budgets, and whatnot. The problem is the leaders they chose decided to keep it for themselves. A good example is the family that killed so many people, di ba?
Yeah. Well, there is a, rather than maybe, instead of looking at it from this, there is corruption and so on and so
Correct.
forth and difference, we have to look at it on a programmatic basis. Now, if you have a society and you want to improve the economics of the whole country, no?
Yes.
Where do you go? Do you cut down on infrastructure, which the previous administrations have done so, and started moving into a service type of economy, which is
Cash out, pay, dole out.
Yeah, and service type, you know, you just export your people and then expect them to come back and then expect them to make remittances, or you do call center operations. These are service economies. You're not manufacturing anything, you're not producing anything. Now, if we're going to do that, there will not be enough jobs, and we will be facing the same situation that we
Over
are.
again.
And it will continue to deteriorate. And it has. Over the years, since 1986 up to now, the quality of life has deteriorated.
For them.
Yeah, we talk about democracy and all that sort of thing. The quality of life has actually deteriorated because we converted what was about to become a producer economy and into a service-oriented economy. No?
But isn't it not their fault that they have chosen the leaders that have corrupted them and mismanaged them as well?
The thing is, sometimes looking at the system that we have, you're not sure that these leaders have actually been chosen by us.
Nah, so they stole the votes, they stole the elections.
Yeah, and we've always been...
The feudal lords, the feudal system.
Right. Feudal system, you've got the Smartmatic, and
Yes.
you've got people that, you know, it doesn't look that way. Sometimes you've got the whole meeting the avance, filling up the whole luneta, but yet the one that had the meeting, the avance, and then the other one could not even fill up Araneta Coliseum, and
Correct.
yet the one Araneta Coliseum had won.
Yes.
Parang nahihirapan ka maintindihan because somewhere along the line, some magic is being performed. That's why, and the ones that are involved in this are
Magic.
not just inside but outside. See, and that's still the problem. But going back to economics, I said you have to choose whether you're going to be a producer economy or a service economy. This president has chosen to be a producer economy. Why? Because he has decided that in order to generate jobs, he's got to come up with infrastructure. And the infrastructure that he's been doing is now moving into creating...
Build.
Creating jobs. Okay. There is a problem there, Dom. It is not directed, to me, from my viewpoint, correctly. No? It is not just a matter of increasing roads or increasing bridges or trains. No? You have to look into the real infrastructure that you need to put up. No?
Steel.
Yeah, well,
Raw material.
You have to produce steel, right?
Yes.
But before you produce steel, what is the most important ingredient in producing steel? Energy. No? But you can't produce reliable,
Energy.
cheap,
Yeah.
and clean energy, no, for your factories, because that's what your unless you have that kind of power generation program. We don't have that. It is funny because we talk about, you know, they go on television and talk about build, and borrowed money here and borrowed money there, and private sector getting in. But nobody's talking about energy. And yet those mass transit systems are not going to work. Those whole agricultural production programs will not work.
You can't industrialize without having a good power.
Yeah.
A good power source.
Power and water.
And water.
Right? And they're related. They're related. You can generate water with a cheap, reliable source of energy. You know? And this is being somehow, I don't know why, but somehow the president is not gung-ho going into
Power.
no? He gives lip service into supporting nuclear, for example, but his whole energy department looks for ways how to delay it. And
You're talking about the rich man Kusi, who made
well,
$1 billion in
he's
the
the
Sal
head,
N
right?
in just 1 year.
Yeah, but the rich man Cusi is well connected with the Aboitises, with the Ayalas, with San Miguel, and so on and so forth. So, and who are these guys? These guys are the guys that are in control of the power industry
Yes, they are.
through the APIRA, right?
Yes.
So this is where we are. Now, let's go into this. There's another thing that is very, to me, onerous, is the train law.
Yes, the new one. We're about to go to stage 2.
Yeah, well, when this was being passed before December, and we were all,
You were not for it. I remember you
I
critiqued
was
on
not
this.
for it because I said, for sure it will impact on the cost of living and it will increase
Inflation.
the inflation, I said.
Which
And-
it has.
And it will, right?
And it has.
Over and above that, you see, what will happen is the people are going to clamor for higher wages, which is by
what's
itself inflationary as well,
Correct.
right? Because if you push up wages, this transfers to the consumers, and consumers will be hit
Paid
by
more, will be paying much more.
higher crime. And this is the kind of situation that our economists, sad to say, decided to go into. And the president, he keeps on saying, I promise corruption, anti-corruption, anti-drugs, anti-terrorism, and
You don't
these
think
other
he's
things.
doing enough when it comes to his economic
He
managers
has,
who
he
seem
has
to have...
abdicated. The president has literally abdicated his role when it comes to economics and just left it to these guys whose real idea, traditionally and up to now, their idea of running an economic system
is to tax
is to
more.
increase taxes and cut down population. You can just the 10-point program.
You're describing a demon, okay, but go ahead.
Well, you look at the 10-point economic program that they came up with early on in 2016 in Davao, where these businessmen and these economists went and supposedly got together, and they came up with 10 points. Everything was fine, hunky-dory, but you will see always prominent in that program. One is to increase taxes, and then the other is to implement an efficient method of population control. Population control is not just implementing the RH bill and preventing
Well, it's true.
pregnancies, right?
Theoretically, when you reduce the population, the growth is stunned. There'll be less people to feed, there'll be less cost, so to speak.
Well,
The margins will widen up.
you see, that is Malthusian. That is the way a guy named Malthus conceived of how it should be. But it didn't really work, and that kind of logic didn't follow because the logic did not include the creativity of man to come up with a better system, you see? And all the time, every time man has gotten into a dead end, no? His creativity comes up together and saves mankind all the time. But if we go into this arithmetic projection,
Like
that-
what the other countries
that-
now, they're
yeah.
suffering by low birth.
the more people you have, the less resources you will have. So therefore, you
down
cut
the
down on the
population.
people so that the growth
margins is
is
wider.
it doesn't. That thing never worked. In the same case here, but our economists are still thinking along those lines. No? But we're just lucky, I suppose, that we've got the president like Duterte. But it will be his undoing
If he
if
doesn't
he
put a check.
allows complete, if he completely abdicates his role on economics, because his logic is the same, is good. What do I mean? Economics must serve the people, right?
Correct.
The people must have a better quality of life. Right?
Correct.
Okay. But the people does not include necessarily the interest of private sector.
Ayun.
What is happening is our whole economic system favors the private sector. And the private sector, supposedly, if they make money, supposedly the benefits will trickle down to the people.
It does not. It
It
stops in
never
their
does.
pockets. Yes.
It never
stops,
does.
yeah.
No.
They just get richer.
That's right. Public utilities must first serve the public before anybody's interest. It must first benefit the public. That's why
we
they're
privatized
public.
it already.
We've privatized water, energy,
Yeah, energy.
mass transit system,
Yes.
healthcare. No?
Even healthcare.
All of them. No? We've privatized. And what is privatization? That means increase profits as much as you can.
Business.
Business, right?
Correct.
So where does government come in? No, the government cannot come in because we have a PPP program.
Correct.
So
Siliado na.
what about the lives of the people? I would dare say, because of that system, there is an effect on increasing mortality rates, which we don't want to bring up or we don't want to focus on.
You think the mortality rates, it's slowing down already? Or it's, it's increasing rather to slow down the population growth
Yes,
because of poor economics?
it will have to be going that way because of the economics program that they're implementing. Now, the other day, I was watching a program in another channel, and you have these economic managers there, and you had private sector there, and you had a foreign reporter or commentator from CNN also as a guest, and they asked, "You have this build program, and why? It seems that you're not giving any projects to the private sector anymore." The immediate knee-jerk answer of the economists, "Oh, but we are, we're doing that. As a matter of fact, we give them priority and so on and so forth, right?" And the private sector was complaining that for all of the infrastructure projects that we're coming up with, a lot of them were ODA, which means government-to-government loans, which means cheaper, lower interest,
yes.
longer term, and much more favorable terms. Long term, no. And of course, if that is the case for infrastructure development, why shouldn't you go into ODA? Why will you go into commercial loans,
Yes.
right? But the private sector was saying that they would like part of this, a chunk of this, right? Unless they don't want to go PPP anymore. If I were the economist there, no,
I'd be embarrassed.
no, I would say because PPP is bad for the economy. It will be bad for our people. But none of them talk about the quality of life of our people. They're talking pesos and cents.
Because
Right.
it's between themselves when they negotiate. Butch, we're going to have to take a short break. Ladies and gentlemen, I know it sounds a little bit complicated. Even I myself start to question my comprehension, because it's the bigger picture. It's the bigger world that you have to look at, and especially when you come to a country with 100 over million Filipinos. It's not just the interest of one or the movement of one sector, or basically just infrastructure as it is. It's really seeing the net effect of cause and consequence. Stay with us, we'll be right back, and let's see if I can confuse you a little more.